Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 457. The Square Circle. Part 4. The time limit for the scenario was until midnight today. It was already 9 p.m., so there were less than 3 hours remaining. How did the time fly by so quickly, anyway? I heard that happy moments would pass you by really quickly. It must have been true. For complaints still need to be answered. And only 3 hours remain. No matter what, I was cutting it real close. From the beginning, solving 5 of such difficult missions was clearly forcing it. In the end, I decided to resort to that. Booyah. Dakibi's had jurisdiction over sub-scenarios, so she should be able to control one just fine. Also, since the failure penalty was not death, but death, I was thinking that they wouldn't kill me for real, and Bu wasn't answering. Where are you, our cute little Bu? Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is cackling at your ill fortune. Constellation, Queen of the Darkest Spring, is urging you to seriously carry this scenario out. Seeing that the channel was open, Bu must be nearby for sure, but I decided to pull out the hidden trump card. Bought. That caused the empty air to quiver a little, then a ball of cotton with a small horn attached on top rose out from there. Abiat. Bu popped out with a poof, and began giggling away. I didn't smile back, though. Booyah. I'm sorry about this, but can you, cancel this scenario? Aobot. I couldn't tell whether she was trying to say Eva or over. Constellations agreeing with the applicable scenario's probability are rejecting the scenario cancellation. Hang on, could this be a bounty scenario, instead? Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is arguing that this scenario is a necessity for you. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is criticizing you, telling you not to use a cowardly method. Constellation, Bald General of Justice, is saying that if you're a true comrade to them, then you should use your valor and tenacious spirit too. Constellation, Goryo's First Sword, is simply denying the cancellation. They are in sync with each other only in times like this, aren't they? Yes. I get it now. Constellation, Most Ancient Liberator, is cheering on his Magne. I couldn't really get used to the new modifier for the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. We parted ways right away after the journey to the west scenario came to an end, but I knew we'd get to see each other soon enough. In any case, who should it be? Who should I speak to next? It should be someone holding the highest amount of complaints towards me, right? I studied my companions one by one, leisurely sitting around together after that fulfilling supper. That was when the midday tryst came flying in my way. What are you looking at? Okay, let's skip Han Suyang for now. Her problems weren't on the level that I could fix anyway. You making fun of me? I continued to search for the next candidate. The next 2 I spotted were Yusung Yi and Gilyang Yi. While looking at the 2 lying side by side and patting their slightly bulging tummies, it almost felt as if the fruit of good and evil was whispering to me from deep inside my mind. If it's their troubles, can't I easily solve them? Even if I set aside the cowardly reason for now, I still needed to have a serious talk with Gilyang Yi. Constellation E. Gilyang's sponsor is staring at you. Although he looked the same on the outside as before, E. Gilyang's status had a faint trace of demonic aura permeating it. Would it be okay to talk to him now? However, wasn't it too open here? Constellation, Master of Skywalk, is observing your actions. Constellation, Lily blooming on Aquarius, is focusing her attention on you. Not only that, constellations were watching us, too. I couldn't really imagine how the channel's constellations would react if I went and carelessly got in touch with that side now. Even then, I should at least talk to him. Currently, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint second stage is in activation. The inside of my head rang with a BZZ, and the skill was activated forcibly once more. This was happening rather often lately. I wasn't sure whether it was because I read The Ways of Survival too much, or due to some other reason, but Ba dump, be a dump, be a dump, be a dump, their voices soon entered my head. Dokja Hyung will come and talk to me, right? Is he coming over now? Ing? I better tell him about a Bayig problem. I must tell him something really shocking. What if Shin Yu-sung talks about something bigger than mine? I definitely must say something more shocking than Lee Gil-young. My steps came to a halt. It was not because I was scared of the kids, though. Anyways, I shifted my gaze to the person crouching next to them, instead. I miss them. Lee Ji-hai, with a sad expression, was looking at the distant sky. She was an energetic chatterbox usually, so it was rare to see her make such face. I could guess who she was referring to when she said she missed them. The first scenario would have been a nightmare to everyone, but it must have been especially worse for her. Even if the Kim Dokja company was here for her, one person couldn't really substitute for someone else. I wordlessly approached her and lightly poked her on the shoulder. Lee Ji-hai looked behind at me. UHT? What's this, a juicy? You finished with the dishes? Yeah. HMM. Wait, did you come here because of the scenario? It's not entirely about that. But I don't have any particular complaints, so you don't need to talk to me, though? Why don't you speak to others first? Even now, she was worried about others. No matter how badly she was hurting, she was still thinking of other people's pain first. Lee Ji-hai from Chungmuro grew up like that. And she grew up into an adult like that, too. You can talk to me anytime. If you don't want to talk to me, then it'll be fine with someone else, too. But you don't have to huddle in a corner and let it fester inside you. Maybe she didn't expect me to say something like that, because Lee Ji-hai began blinking her eyes next. Juicy, don't try to act cool, okay? She smirked and punched me in the shin with her sturdy fist. I thought my bone was broken or something. You have currently resolved one complaint. A simple chat on this level couldn't resolve Lee Ji-hai's troubles. Even then, I still had to speak to her. She lightly shook her beer glass around and while standing up, spoke to me. Alright, then. Since I'm full, I should go and stretch my limbs for a bit. You shouldn't exercise after drinking, you know. I feel fine, though. Seeing her swing her sword about like that, she definitely was her master's student, alright. Hang on a bit. Now that I thought about it, there was one guy who should be the most dissatisfied by me around here, wasn't there? I quickly scanned the campsite, but strangely enough, I couldn't locate that idiot no matter how hard I looked. Hey, you deaf? When someone is calling you, you should. Along with a resounding slap, someone smacked me in the back of the head. I looked behind and spoke to the culprit. Hey, Han Soo-young. What now? Where is Yu Young-hyuk? Yu Young-hyuk? He was over th. Only then did she realize it, too. Honestly speaking, that guy usually acted on his own and often disappeared on us without warning, so this shouldn't come across as all that surprising. The problem had to with the fact that he didn't disappear alone this time. Han Soo-young looked into the wide-open rear door of the X-grade Ferragini and spoke up. The secretive plotter is gone, too. Asterisk. The secretive plotter, surrounded in the transparent ceiling sphere, landed on the ground with a thud and roughly rolled around in the dirt. He was still unconscious. Yu Young-hyuk quietly looked down on him, then slowly unsheathed the dark heavenly demon sword and addressed the plotter. I know that you're already awake. The secretive plotter slowly opened his eyes. Accompanied by faint sparks, energy from a fable surged throughout his body. For a moment there, his fables were returning to him. You don't seem to know how to enjoy these brief moments of peace. I don't have a habit of enjoying my peace with an enemy near me. Are you planning to kill me? That is indeed a wise move. However, you should know by now that you can't really kill me. That was true. The secretive plotter was another Yu Young-hyuk. Killing him simply meant the creation of another world line. Even then, Yu Young-hyuk didn't let go of his dark heavenly demon sword. It'll be far better than watching you mess up this world line. The plotter laughed. They were both Yu Young Hyuks. They may have lived two different lives, but their nature as Yu Young Hyuk was the same. And that was why they could understand each other's thought process the best. Do you believe that your power alone is enough to kill me? Without Kim Dokja's fable, the current you can't fight against an outer god. That might be the case, but killing you will be rather simple. I only have to shatter that sealing sphere. A faint trace of unrest flitted in and out of the plotter's expression. Currently, the secretive plotter was inside the unstable, Apocalypse Dragon sealing sphere, created by the 999th turn Zoriel. You're deliberately not removing the sealing sphere. If you break it, then the hounds chasing after the abyss will appear from the gap in space and time, that's why. It only had been for a brief moment, but still, Yu Young Hyuk got to steal a glance into the memories of the 1864 regression turns engraved into the hellscape of eternity. That's where he got to learn partial information on outer gods. The hounds that chased after the abyss, he learned about the hounds of Tindalos during that time, too. They were the cleaners capable of detecting the distortion in a world line. They can only intrude from where angles below 90 degrees exist. The normal you wouldn't be troubled by something like a few hounds, but with how weakened you are, the story should change greatly. The flow of status loaded onto the dark heavenly demon sword grew thicker. Yu Young Hyuk too hadn't fully recovered from his wounds, so fighting the plotter head-on was impossible. However, shattering the sealing sphere shouldn't pose a challenge. The plotter's expression changed, perhaps after figuring out Yu Young Hyuk's intentions. It was the face of a man who had accepted something. And so, just as Yu Young Hyuk's dark heavenly demon sword was about to make a move. Appa! Someone's head poked out from the bushes. What are you doing? Yu Young Hyuk was taken by surprise and while turning his head towards her, shouted out. Yumiya! Don't come closer! Dismay brushed past his expression next. Because he had focused all of his perception on this secretive plotter, he ended up making such an egregious mistake. Go back to where our companions are. This place is dangerous. Don't want to. She replied in a cold voice, something she had never used before. Yu Young Hyuk replied in stupefaction. What? You don't even come back to Earth all that often anyway, so stop nagging me. You promised to stay with me for a few days, didn't you? Both Sujayang Ajama and Jayang Ranajama are always busy, you know? And I'm tired of listening to Grandma Baksun's stories of the past, too. Yumiya clearly enunciated every single word as she strode forward. Yu Young Hyuk's judgment blurred for a moment then. She seized that opening and quickly ran towards the front of the secretive plotter. By the way, he looks exactly like you, Appa. Who are you exactly? Before long, she was within the touching distance of the plotter. Yu Young Hyuk grew anxious. He wanted to swing his sword right now and shatter the sealing sphere, but his little sister might get swept up in the air current if he made the slightest mistake here. As he began deliberating on his options, she placed her hand on the transparent sealing sphere and innocently asked the figure inside. Are you trapped in this thing? You want me to help you get out of there? Yu Young Hyuk dearly wanted to move and pull her away from there right now. But for some reason, he couldn't. The secretive plotter was staring at Yumiya. His eyes were trembling from a very powerful agitation. Even Yu Young Hyuk was surprised to see such an expression appear on the plotter's face, someone who had lived through an untold amount of time. Yumiya pressed him further in the meantime. Come on now, answer me. Chapter 458. The Square Circle. Part 5. Yu Young Hyuk was prepared to swing his dark heavenly demon sword if the secretive plotter tried to do something foolish, but rather unexpectedly, the latter easily answered back. He didn't even use his true voice either. You're right. I am trapped in here. His real, pure voice was heard for the first time. That prompted Yumiya to reply with a bright smile. Ask my Appa to free you. He's super strong, you see? She spoke in an innocent voice, but he replied with a slow shake of his head. I can't leave this thing. What? Why not? The secretive plotter didn't reply. Wait, did my Appa do something to you? He threatened you with scary words, didn't he? No, that's not it. It's not? What then? The plotter didn't reply again. Without saying anything, he stared at Yumiya. He stared for a long time at the one person that no longer existed for him. And for the first time ever, a faint smile formed on his lips. It's because I chose to be in here. Yu Young-hyuk saw that smile and couldn't say anything. Yumiya was busy asking what he meant, and meanwhile, the plotter quietly stared back at her. The latter slowly raised his hand, and his palm overlapped with hers through the thin transparent layer. Their hand sizes were fairly similar. These two palms may have overlapped after transcending time and space, but they could never truly meet. It was then, Yumiya blinked slowly and began faltering a little. Why am I so sleepy? Her body slowly fell to the ground. Yu Young-hyuk quickly dashed to her side and embraced her. You bastard, what have you done? I only helped her dream of nice things. Yu Young-hyuk studied his little sister. For sure, her incarnation body showed no signs of any strange symptoms. No, she simply was in a deep slumber, softly murmuring indecipherable sleep talk like beach volleyball and squid party, etc. He glared at the secretive plotter with a complicated expression. No matter how weakened he was, by using Yumiya, he would have been able to escape from this situation pretty easily. However, he didn't do that. He simply stared longingly at the sleeping face of the girl, instead. What happened to Mia in your world? She survived. He answered immediately. And also died. That too was immediate. What does that even? Just as Yu Young-hyuk opened his lips, he understood what those answers meant. So, he shut his mouth right away. Seemingly crying sparks ever so faintly danced around. Under the pretext of the disconnected film theory, the memories of these two beings trembled and their fables shifted. In one world line, Yumiya survived for a long time. Even after he died. The world of a man who lived 1864 lifetimes, just what kind of a world would that be? However, in another world line, she died. A regressor might have lived far more presence than anyone out there, but in reality, he was nothing more than a ghost of the past. He was an existence that had to move on to the next turn because he failed to alter the past. 0th turn, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 1863rd. This being was not a Yu Young-hyuk from any of those regression turns. But, he was the Yu Young-hyuk that belonged to all the worlds, the man who carried all the worlds as his burden. And that was why he was more Yu Young-hyuk than any other Yu Young-hyuks. You're pitying me. Who would do that to a... Do you believe that my life was a misery? Yu Young-hyuk couldn't tell if that was a form of sympathy directed at himself. The blade of the dark heavenly demon sword he held tightly was faintly trembling. Why was he hesitating now? He had come this far already, so what was left to hesitate? Just because he heard a bit of this bastard's past history. The secretive plotter opened his lips. Did you know? There was this young boy in the frontmost subway car that always died during every regression turn. That question came out of nowhere. Yu Young-hyuk naturally recalled the events of the subway train. The very first scenario, the very first encounter with hell that he had to experience every single time. However, Yu Young-hyuk didn't know anything about such a boy. Because there were simply too many people who died in that manner back then. While regressing several times, I tried to prevent his death, but it was impossible. He was really a young boy. Younger even than Lee Gil-young. However, even such a child had to prove his credentials. For all of the 1863 lives, that child couldn't even put up a proper fight and had to die. He died, and died, and died over and over again. Yu Young-hyuk couldn't say a single word. The plotter asked him again. Between a man who regressed 1863 times, and a child who has to repeatedly die for 1863 times with no recollections of it, which one do you think is actually more miserable? That is. The plotter was implying this, that your pity had no meaning, no value whatsoever. Even then, Yu Jung-hyuk couldn't readily accept that. Indeed, there was no meaning in comparing the importance of different miseries. However, that also didn't mean that misery didn't exist. The star stream tries to make the lives of everyone into Jiaisung Janjiao. However, a life was never supposed to be that. No, it's an unreasonable thing that can end at any time, whether it's GI, beginning, sung, development, or even during John, climax. And that's why, even if my life comes to an end here, it shouldn't come as a surprise. Did the boy from the subway make the same expression as this man? Yu Jung-hyuk couldn't tell. The secretive plotter stared back at him with a pair of quiet, still eyes. Yu Jung-hyuk stared back into those eyes for the longest time, before averting his gaze away while lowering the dark heavenly demon sword. You'll end up seeing that boy's death for the 1864th time if you regress again. In the end, he returned his sword back to its scabbard. This could be the wrong decision. Even then, Yu Jung-hyuk had made up his mind. Maybe he too didn't expect such a choice, because the secretive plotter remained speechless for a long while. You've been greatly influenced by Kim Dokja, it seems. Shut your mouth. I can kill someone like you at any. Multiple presences were drawing near. Voices were calling out to him. They were Kim Dokja and Han Soo-young, plus those of the Kim Dokja Company's people. Although it irks me to admit this, let me say that one thing is for certain. This world line is different from any that I have lived through so far. It's possible that you and your group can truly witness what's beyond that wall. However, do not keep your hopes up, thinking that you'll see the conclusion you desire. And also, even if that conclusion wasn't what you initially wanted. The plotter's true voice suddenly grew fainter. His eyelids were slowly closing up. He was falling into another bout of deep slumber. Just as Kim Dokja emerged out from the thicket, the plotter finished what he wanted to say. Do not think of this world as a failed turn. Asterisk. We played beach volleyball. That was Yumia's answer after I asked her about what happened here. I'm telling you, we grilled squids, and I played beach volleyball with my appa. Could it be that one's power of comprehension is lower if you're ugly? I wanted to tell her that there were 3 things wrong in her statement. 1. We were not near an ocean. 2. I wasn't ugly, and my power of comprehension was. Well, I guess nothing serious has happened here. Han Soo-young muttered in relief. Indeed, we couldn't see any traces of Yu Jung-hyuk causing an accident, and the secretive plotter was still stuck in a deep slumber. I put the plotter back inside the X-grade Ferragini. There were a few things that didn't sit well with me, but now wasn't the time to grill the one responsible. Okay, everyone, please gather around. Let's start the campfire. The flames rose up thickly and brightened the darkness of the campsite. Time was approaching closer to midnight. Only then did I remember something important. Hang on. My scenario hasn't. Damn it, I forgot all about it because of Yu Jung-hyuk. I could hear Bu humming Baat, just above my head. Scenario time limit has elapsed. Would I really get killed like this? Sub-scenario, workers' off day has ended. You need to resolve a total of 5 complaints. You have currently resolved 1 complaint. You have resolved all of your employees' complaints. New fable related to the Kim Dokja Company is being generated. Seriously, man. It's like you forgot your wits somewhere or some such, muttered Han Soo-young, as she stared at the sight of my face. Companions were giggling to themselves while looking at me. It was then I recalled their replies whenever I tried to talk to them. I don't have any particular complaints. That was for real? No one here will blame you, you know. Han Soo-young's disinterested voice spread out. We sat around soaking in the bonfire without saying anything else. I thought I could sense their hearts contained in this silence, and that caused my emotions to well up for some reason. Zhang Huiwan added something on top. Well, if you want me to find something to talk to you about, then I can think of one, but it's not a complaint, so. Even though the warm bonfire was before me, why did a chill creep down my back just then? In any case, we rested really well today. Someone didn't seem to have gotten any rest, though. Yu Sangha spoke, and Yi Jihai followed her up on that. But, is it over like this? Aren't we going to, light candles and start sobbing, or write stuff on a rolling paper? This ain't even a real school trip, so why should we? Besides, the paper, while listening to Han Suyang's retort, I began thinking. Rolling paper written by her, was it? That might be quite interesting, indeed. Han Suyang suddenly stopped talking there and looked at me before asking a question. You want me to write one for you? Not really. We aren't little kids anyway. Wait a minute. Didn't you say you never had any friends and didn't even go to membership trainings either? I guess you've never received one before, then. If the total reserve of my mental energy declined during this trip, then it was all Han Suyang's fault. A few members of Kim Dokja Company, blessed with strong drive, had already purchased pens and large papers from the Dakibi bundle. Seriously, though, these greedy Dakibis even charged coins for something like that. Yu Yonghyuk, sitting across me on the other side of the campfire, seemed to be angry as well. I won't participate in something like this. Although, his reason for anger seemed to be different from mine. Nevertheless, seeing my companions gathered around closely and scribbling on their papers gave me this fresh perspective on things. It's like this was a writing get-together for the poor, friendless Kim Dokja. While everyone was writing their names on the papers and passing it along, Yi Gil-yang suddenly raised his hand up. Hyung, I bought this off the Dakibi bundle, so can I fire it? Shin Yu-sun discovered the toy in the boy's hand and her expression brightened up instantly. Isn't that the same thing people were firing around the Han River? Yeah, I remembered that, so I bought it. Let me try it, too. No way. You buy your own. It's 2,000 coins, you know. Yi Gil-yang was currently holding onto a parachute helicopter. I had seen that a couple of times before, too. It was a toy that, when you pulled hard at the attached string and then let go, it'd fly up into the sky while emitting bright light. His toy seemed a bit special though, as it featured 4 large wings shaped like a square. Besides all that, though, that thing cost 2,000 coins? Okay, I'm gonna fire it. Yi Gil-yang fired the parachute helicopter into the air. The toy flew up and while spinning around vigorously, dyed the surroundings with bright light. The light scattered as if it was fireworks going off. Even though they should have been familiar with far more spectacular sights than this, the group still looked on genuinely impressed. The square-shaped wings of the helicopter spun around quickly and formed a circle. I thought it looked like a portal. A portal that led to the world we used to live in. We might not be able to go back anymore, but still, I felt the nostalgia of that world from it. It was around then that a system message resounded out. Incarnation, Yi Gil-yang, has used the item parachute helicopter, extra-large optical screen. The spinning wings of the helicopter grew larger and larger, and eventually, changed shape to that of a huge screen. Yi Jihai frowned deeply. What the heck? It was a hologram panel? We now have to watch a scenario even in this place? Yi Gil-yang, did you even read the user's manual before? And no, I thought it was just a helicopter, so I... Just as the boy tried to make his excuse, a small earthquake suddenly rocked the vicinity. The expressions on the companions hardened instantly. What kind of crap is it this time? Accompanying Han Suyang's words, we all focused our attention on the screen in the air. And when we did, we understood the reason for the earthquake. First of all, it didn't belong to the Korean peninsula. The optical screen was now displaying the American continent. And right before our eyes, that large continent was disappearing in its entirety. Because of a gigantic island rising up from the deepest part of the earth. Along with the entrance of that island, the American continent was being erased from the map itself. The applicable world line has reached its critical point. Elevation of the Forgotten Islands has begun. Yu Jung-hyuk, his expression hardened, quietly muttered out. The end has begun.